All right, folks, it is January 1st, 2023. It is 46 degrees in sunny southern New England, and we're going to talk about gardening. This is the Urban Sentinel. Let's get into it. So, gardening, for a lot of people, it's a hobby. It's something they do for fun and entertainment. It keeps you occupied. You learn a skill. For preppers, that's the primary thing, is it's a skill, and it can provide sustenance and the ability to keep yourself ahead of the herd when things start to fall apart. I've had ups and downs with my gardens over the years, and like any other year, I make new plans and try new strategies, and this is another one. So I'm going to throw out a couple of tips for you new gardeners out there, especially people who are gardening in small spaces, perhaps porches, apartments, things like that, or even very small yards with limited area to work with. Now, what you see here is what would be considered a drink cart or a bar cart. You can usually find them at Target, Walmart, order them online, things like that. They don't cost too much, but the advantage that you have with one of these things, especially if you have a small space that you're working in and it's indoors, is it gives you the ability to take a lot of your small plants that you're going to be working with and set them on the different trays and be able to grow from there. The double advantage to that is if you have an area where you may not get consistent light on one particular side, with the wheels on it, it allows you to move it across the floor, across the room, or into different rooms to keep effectively tracking the lighting as you need it, so you can maximize the number of hours that you have. And also the advantage that since it is handled, it can be easy enough, depending upon what you have in there, to pick it up, move it completely to a different area if you need to, whether it needs to be taken out of the way for safety, if there's a storm coming, or if you need to clear an area to do some work, you can roll it out of the way, pick it up, bring it up some stairs, down some stairs, whatever the case may be. Now, another thing that you want to make sure, and I will say some, but not all, have a wire meshed bottom. The reason why this is important is there are numerous different types of vegetables that add or deplete nutrients from the soil that they're in. What you want to try to do, and it's not always going to work out, is find certain plants that you're going to be growing to see which plants, once they've effectively pulled the nutrients out of the soil, leach out other nutrients, and then find the corresponding plant that is more favorable for that. So basically what you want to do in this case, there are 3 levels. I'd want whatever plants are on this upper level, that as the water is passing through the soil and is going through the plant, running through its system, and it drips down to the next row of plants down here, which I will still water, but this aids in providing more nutrients to them, and then that passes down into the bottom level there. So to one extent, it's like a slow nutritional filter drip, almost like an IV drip for the plants underneath. Now, you still have to take into account what plants need watering and how often, because you don't want to oversaturate or underwater a plant. That can have problems. The other advantage with this is, depending upon what you're looking to grow, you may start a series of seedlings in these trays and then transplant them into smaller pots, larger pots, or move them into other large growing areas, perhaps even outside. You want to get started before the frost ends, so you have a series of plants all ready to go in pots that you can then later transplant, either direct sow into the ground, bed boxes, larger planter boxes, whatever you have set up. Now, because most of my gardening tips are focused on, even with the yard space I have, people who don't have a lot of space, especially apartment dwellers or small yard area dwellers, I try to make it as practical as possible. So to one extent, yes, if you've got the square footage to go and dig up the ground, put planter boxes in and bed boxes and all that sort of stuff, then go ahead and do it. But if you're limited in that ability, or you just don't really have the time, because it is labor intensive to maintain and keep up with all that stuff, you may just want to keep things in a series of plants, pots inside pots. Now, one of the things that you can do is, a lot of times certain plants are best kept in very small containers till the seedlings start to grow, they get a little bit bigger and their roots start to spread, and then you transplant them. What a lot of people who have experience with this know, and it's real easy to figure out, is you lose a lot of soil, and sometimes those roots, they tend to be a bit tender and can be torn and damaged. So one trick that I have that can help that to one extent is you take an empty container pot that's what you're going to start growing your seedling in, but you take a little bit of either butcher paper, old newspaper, it's pretty much just inexpensive paper that's still somewhat durable. You tear off a piece, enough to fill the circumference on the inside, put the paper inside the pot, then you'd add your soil into the pot. Once you've done that and you've planted your seed and you're doing all your watering and it starts to grow, when it gets to the point where you can take it out of there, the paper acts as a liner, which helps keep the soil together. So when you carefully pull it out, you basically pull more soil together with the rest of the root plant, the system itself, then separating it, tearing up the roots and damaging the plant. This way, if you wanted to go from one smaller pot to, let's say, a slightly larger size pot, you could do that. And then from a pot like this, perhaps into the ground or an even larger container, depending upon what you're doing. The primary thing is, if you're growing your vegetables to supplement your food intake or to even have as a backup, a standby, in the event that there is a long-term food shortage, you want to be able to make sure that you can maintain control of your plants that you're growing, keeping them healthy, being able to make sure they get the adequate light they need, that they're not going to be exposed to extreme temperatures that may harm them. And sometimes the difference between moving plants a few inches out of the way of direct sunlight or putting them into the direct sunlight for just an hour or two can make that difference. Watering them, maintaining health, making sure that they're not getting infested with funguses or getting attacked by pests, those are other things that you can think about. But overall, as the new year starts, I'm going to be redoing my garden that I have outside, implementing some other ideas and strategies in terms of taking care of the vermin that I have around here. I've had an issue with wood trucks for the last 2 years straight, and it was really bad last year. So I'm taking a few different alternative techniques into dealing with that. I'm also going to be looking at planting more long-term sustainable crops that hopefully will, to one extent or another, be the foundation that my garden continues to build up and grow off of. So, even though the new year has just started and for most of the country it's still cold weather, and we really do have several more months of the wintertime cold weather going to be coming at us, it's better to start preparing now. So this way you've got certain things lined up. You've got your seeds, you've got your soil, you've got whatever you're going to be planting in. You're making any adjustments and planning. Sit down at your kitchen table, draw it out, list the things that you want to grow, list the things that are best grown in your area, in your environment, and look at when you need to start getting those things ready, because before you know it, it'll be March, it'll be April. Next thing you know, May is around and you haven't done anything, and then you're behind the curve for the growing season. And that also too can throw a wrench into the monkey works, as they say. So that's it for now. Like, share, subscribe. There'll be more videos coming out, and I'll catch you in the next one.